Premier Gospel.
I'm here with a woman who has been voted Women's Health Favorite Mental Health Expert, which is an amazing thing. And she's the founder of Culture Minds Counselling Directory, is Sharnade George. Welcome. Hello.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for joining, man. I'm very intrigued in therapy and psychologists and people that work with the mind because it's just such a fascinating place. Um, and with the people that you work with, which is what we're going to get onto in the interview. It's also interesting because you do work with a lot of influencers, a lot of celebrities, footballers, and I find that really interesting. But we're going to get into that later on in the interview. So, what I wanted to find out first was what made you want to get into this line of work? Was it something that happened in your life and you thought this is what I want to do, or did you just see it as a need?
I think I've always been interested in psychology and mental health. I went to uni at the University of West London, and that was almost about 5, 6 years ago now. Studied psychology and counselling as a degree, and then ever since then, I kind of continued within that line of work. And I remember I worked in a psychiatric hospital. So this is where we have patients with bipolar, depression, psychotic illnesses. And I think from there, that was when it triggered that, you know what, this is the field I want to be in, and this is the field I want to kind of continue in. And then ever since there, it just kind of flourished. And I continued to grow within my professional development and kind of add a little twist to things.
Had a little twist, yeah. But that must have been a challenge working in a psychiatric hospital because that's a whole different type of mental health that goes in there. That must have been a real challenge.
Yeah, it was a challenge, but it was a great experience because with mental health, there's two different sides. Well, there's different ends of the spectrum when it comes to mental health. There's people who get admitted to hospital, and then there's people at the low end of the spectrum. So this was people, well, children who were admitted in a psychiatric hospital and on different wards. So we had the day service ward, the acute ward, and the PQ ward. And so, yeah, I kind of worked around all different wards and saw different presentations around different children. And it's funny you said that because during that time, I was actually I was pregnant working on a psychiatric ward as well. So it was amazing.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. Children as well. It's
Yeah.
kind of slightly veered off to what I was going to ask, but children, what kinds of, I mean, I wouldn't know. I've never heard of a child being in a psychiatric ward. What things would you have to look out for as a parent to maybe see that your child is maybe needing that type of help?
It was more not children, sorry, it was more adolescence, so
Okay.
more teenage years. But some signs you could look out for could be withdrawal if your child is, withdrawing themselves from the family home, if your child is isolating themselves, if you've noticed a lack of maybe appetite, they're not eating with the family, or mood swings, becoming quite irritable. So there's various different signs and signals that you can look out for in your child, and depending on what they're struggling with.
Wow, man. That is
Yeah.
because a lot of those things as well. I have a friend, she has a son who's constantly just in his room on Fortnite. And
Okay.
should I be worried about that? Because it's
Uh,
just
has
over.
she tried to has she tried to speak to her son about it?
She has, and she said the other day, "Can you come off your room to clean?" And he got in a real bad temper and said, "Right, I'm leaving home." Packed his bags, threatened to run away because he didn't want to
Oh,
come off his game. And she was like, "He's on there with other kids.
yeah.
So is it normal that all these kids are just on this game like all the time?"
You know,
Or
I think it is with COVID. You
yeah,
know, kind of a bit of an escapism for children, unable to go to school, unable to even go outside to meet their friends. So
mm,
the only place that they can actually interact and engage with their friends is going to be online, which is quite fortunate. But I think as parents, it's good to monitor, how long your child is spending online and how long they're spending time with you, and kind of try to get that equal balance. Because kids, we love to play games, we love to interact with our friends, but it's all about getting that balance, that right balance.
yeah, it's very important, man.
Yeah,
We're
definitely.
going to bring it back to more of what you do. So you do
Yeah,
work primarily with people of Black people in them communities, ethnic minority communities, which is
yeah,
really important work. And I think there is a stigma around Black people in therapy. and maybe cultures in therapy as well, and Christianity and therapy. There's just so much going on that you kind of have to battle through. What are some of the prevailing issues that you see in these communities, maybe from a race perspective, that because they are that in that community or that race, they're dealing with this, that you would want to raise awareness about?
I would say within the Black and Asian culture, within our culture, I would say a lot of us have a lack of understanding about mental health
Mm.
because mental health has not been taught in schools. So that's where the lack of understanding comes from. Whereas when you have professionals such as myself, we learn and we study this at university. So that's why we have that knowledge. And I feel like some people, well, majority of people can be quite scared, particularly with what goes on in the world with institutionalized racism and not knowing who to trust, healthcare, police, because there are different ways that you can seek help for your mental health depending on the severity. So some people can get brought into a mental health hospital with a police via Section 136, or some people can contact their GP. And I feel that the lack of understanding and there's a bit of confusion as who to trust, who to go to, and that can kind of make people feel a bit quite fearful and feel a bit quite worried as to, I'm struggling and what do I do? What if they kind of put me in a hospital? What if they put me on medication? So it's all many things that kind of deter people from seeking support and seeking help.
What are some of the things that you think pushes people to actually finally come to you? If people are sitting there right now listening,
Yeah.
thinking about it, I don't know. What are some of the things that maybe you would say look for in your own mind that you've seen in other people that made them say, "All right, I'm going to come to therapy and start this process"?
Okay. I would say if you're thinking about starting therapy or wanting to seek more information, I would definitely say do some research because it's good to have a little bit of knowledge before you get into therapy or before you kind of ask questions or kind of explore that world. One thing for me, as I said in the beginning, I do things with a little bit of a twist. So I interview public figures. And the reason why I started doing this was because I like to talk and I like to talk about mental health and it was like combined with what I like into one big conversation essentially. And I've noticed that many people who come to me is based off of the interviews. So they would listen to the interview, feel inspired, and reach out for help. So that was kind of like a leeway as to how you can seek support and seek help, knowing that you're not alone, knowing that public figures also go through what you're going through, and it's okay to seek help. So that's a great point to start if you're struggling and want some inspiration.
That's great. And I did want to talk about as well that side of it. So you do work with a lot of people that are in the public eye, influencers, people that have been on Love Island that just get thrust into like this this world. What are some of the effects that you see on these people? Because I think we do often forget that these are people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they have millions of people on their platforms sometimes, literally millions of people in their notifications just talking. What
Mm-hmm.
are some of the effects that you've seen on them, and how can you help us as people to kind of humanize them a bit and not make them seem like untouchable, like they just have these great, like, what are some of the things that you've dealt with them, and yeah, maybe that'll help us to kind of see them as people?
Understand a bit. Yeah. Well, I've worked with TV presenters, athletes, to name a few, and I would say they're just like us. They're just like us. They go through the same problems we go through. They go through the same emotions. They're in the world as well as we're in the world. Although they may go on, let's say, reality TV or kind of in the media and entertainment industry, they still struggle just like us. And some of the clients I've worked with have experienced difficulties with guilt, difficulties with social anxiety, difficulties with low self-esteem. And, that can sometimes stem from the career path that they're in, or it can stem from, being on a reality TV show and coming off and having to deal with the normal world. Because when we're on a reality TV show, it's not normal. We're placed in fixed environments based on a show. And so when we come out, we now have to deal with what's going on in the real world. How do people think about us? People judging us. So yeah, it does really affect them, and it does have an impact on them. So be kind. They're normal people just like us. They're human beings. Just because they're on TV, it doesn't make them any different mentally as well. That's very important because we all have mental health and we all can struggle at different points of our life. So being on TV, you're more exposed and more vulnerable. So it's important to be kind. Be kind.
On that note as well, so there's a lot of influencers that have been getting so much flack recently.
I know.
Out to Dubai, and you know, what's your take on that in terms of their mental health and helping us as well? Because it's a two-way thing. As we're watching them, it
Mm,
feel like our mental health is affected, but then
mm-hmm.
they're projecting that onto them, and they're
Yeah.
obviously not going to handle that too great. And it's like a two-way thing of you just not help one another. How do we make sure that we help them in that and also help ourselves?
I would definitely say be mindful. Be mindful of everybody's situation because you don't know what they're out there for. And I think also for the influencers who are out there, also be mindful on what you're doing. You know, if you're out there doing work and, you know, keep it work, you know, glamorizing what you're doing, on the other side, people watching that are going to automatically assume, you know, how come you're out there and we're not allowed? So I would just say for both parties, influencers, be mindful of what you're putting on social media and what message you're going to bring across. Because as an influencer, you have an audience, you know, people are looking up to you, people are watching what you're doing, they're keeping track of what you're doing, they're going to monitor everything you're doing. So just be mindful of what you're putting out there. And for us on the receiving end, be mindful of you don't know why these influencers are out there. You don't know what they're doing. It could be exceptional circumstance. So be mindful before you judge someone based on their lifestyle,
Yeah.
because we may not know the ins and outs of an influencer's lifestyle. They may have to travel and they may have to do many things abroad. So, you know, just be mindful. And with COVID, it's difficult for everyone. We all want to go on holiday. So when we see people on holiday, it's a massive trigger. It's like, what? I want to go where you are. So everyone's emotions are up in the air, and it's triggering. You know, it's triggering. So just be mindful. I would say the best thing. Just be mindful.
Mindful on all parts, man. It is very triggering.
Yeah.
It's hard to not make it trigger you when it's not.
Yeah.
Okay, yay. We're gonna
Exactly.
move it over to actually one question that I want. I don't know if you've already answered this in one of my previous questions, but um, the effects of fame on people. Um, how does fame affect people's mental health? Because I think a lot of people don't get that or even consider it because
Mm,
famous people is in this bubble. But how does fame affect people generally and with a lot of people as well that have taken their lives because they just can't
mm,
cope with the attention that they have, or maybe they had the attention and they lost it and that affects them as well. How does
yeah.
fame affect people's mental health? And if someone is maybe famous right now, they're watching this,
Mhm.
what would you say they can do to protect their mental health?
I would say if someone's out there and they're famous wanting to protect their mental health, I would say don't be afraid to seek support or seek help. You know, within the role you work in, you are exposed to the world essentially. So you need to protect yourself and ensure that you have a healthy boundary between, you know, what you put out there and also what you consume. Because a lot of the information or the news you're going to be consuming will be about you. If it's something latest about yourself, what you've been doing. So just be mindful when, you know, there is help out there for people like yourselves, just like there is for everybody else. No one is, you know, exempt to mental health support. And what does fame do to your mental health? That's a big question. I would say, because a lot of the time people who go into, like, let's say reality TV shows, their intention may not to become famous. They may have an intention of, you know what, this is a good opportunity for me. Let's see what can happen. And then as time goes by, you know, their character builds up and people begin to love them and they get all their attention. So for them, you know, it can massively affect their psychological well-being and emotional well-being because they're now entering a new world that's new to them. And it's like a transition from, you know, being a normal person, you know, walking out, going to your local Tesco's and not being spotted or papped, to going on a reality TV show and then coming out. And then, you know, you have to be a bit mindful of when you go out, you know, how you're going to dress, what you're going to look like, because you will be exposed. So it's a massive transition, and support is needed to deal with that transition and to really understand, you know, your status has now changed. You're now, you know, a reality star. How do you feel about that? And just helping them to understand, how do you feel about this new change? and work on those areas.
Yeah, man, that's an important topic, and it is a really big topic. I'd love to talk more on it. Move slightly over to Christianity and therapy. So
Yeah.
there is a massive stigma in the church.
Mm.
You know, we can pray away our emotions, and
Mm.
we can just pray it all away. Or I have heard of stories of people in the church saying, you know, don't go to therapy,
Oh wow.
don't go to therapy. I've had personal things in my past with things that happened in the church, and the people in the church were like, if you go to therapy, you might corrupt the therapist and then turn them away from God. So there's a lot of issues to break down when it comes to Christianity and therapy. What are your thoughts on that? Do you have more Christians coming to you? Have you seen a stigma with it? And if so, how have you broken it down?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I love that question. So I'll share two things actually, because for me as a therapist, I need to read. I need That's part of my continued professional development, and I've noticed all of the books that I read, they reference God, or they reference, some type of religion or spirituality. So it is important to not neglect your spirituality and your mental well-being, because they can come hand in hand. And just because you're seeking help for your mental health doesn't mean, you're neglecting your spirituality or your belief in God. That's crazy. We're human beings, we have mental health such as we have a spiritual being. And I would say we do get I do get, and my business, we do get Christians who come in and they want to seek therapy and seek support, and they may ask for a Christian therapist. And there are organizations out there who focus on Christianity and therapy, so combining the two together. Even when you read the word, God talks about, don't be anxious and lean on Him. And not to get too deep into the word, but it's in the word there, so we can't neglect what it says in the Bible and misinterpret that for our own, beliefs. We have to kind of go by what the Bible says. And one thing, I had an interview with Lettice Crawford. She's a gospel singer, and one thing she said that resonated with me was that God has put people out there in this world for you. And if you need to see a therapist, God has put that person out there for you. So don't think of it as, if I see this therapist, they're going to corrupt my mind and they're going to make me think this or take me away from God. Because therapists, I'm a Christian, so I'm not going to deter my patient's belief in their religion. That's biased and we're not supposed to do that. So don't think too deeply into the situation, and we can't take you or change you from who you are. Therapy is about growth and healing. So if you need God for your growth and healing, you could bring that into therapy and we can help you with that. So that's what I would say.
I think that was a great answer. And what you said about what Lettice Crawford said as well, I think a lot of Christians, and what you said about it not taken away from the fact that we live in our God, it's not that we don't,
Mm,
it's just that we need help with our mental health. It's just, it is what it is. Um,
yeah.
yeah, that God has put someone out there. I think a lot of Christians, and even myself, when I've literally just started therapy. I've had like 2 sessions.
Oh,
In my
lovely.
head, I was very much like, I need a Christian therapist. Put this in my mind, but then afterwards, I thought, actually, like, it's helpful to have someone that relates on a spiritual level.
Yeah.
The person, you can just take someone for your mind, and that's it, and
Yeah, exactly.
over there, and it's cool. So
Mm.
yeah, I liked that answer. So what is out there then for people to, in terms of what you do, what is out there for people to go to get help right now? We're listening and we're thinking, man, I want to move forward with it. What's out there?
Well, if you are listening and you want to go forward, I would say, congratulations. And that's a good kind of turning point for you. So you should be proud of yourself. And I would say I run a business called Culture Minds Therapy. And we have a list of professionals ranging from counselors, psychotherapists, and psychologists who are there to help you and offer private therapy. So if you are struggling, even if you don't want to seek therapy straight away, you can browse on the website. We have a lot of information, learn a bit more, like I said in the beginning, have a bit of understanding of what you're getting yourself into. Because also, when it comes to therapy, you, as well as you need to be mindfully ready, you can't necessarily force yourself, because therapy is a two-way process, it's collaborative. So we work with our clients as much as they work with us. So knowing when the right time is to seek help and getting that understanding would be definitely my first kind of call to action. And yeah, if you're looking for a therapist, you can reach out to any of the therapists. They're available and yeah, willing to help and support you.
Yes. And last thing then as well, for people that may not have the funds, because therapy can be quite costly, um,
Hmm.
what can we do as people that may not be able to afford it right now, just in our own worlds, in our own homes, we're all in lockdown at the moment. What can we do to
Yeah.
like, just take care of ourselves on a day-to-day basis?
That's a good question. If you want to take care of yourself on a day-to-day basis, there are many books you can read. There are many self-help books, but I also think people neglect workbooks as well because there are a lot of workbooks that are easy to read. You don't feel like you're in uni, and you can get a book on self-love and kind of do some activities on that. You can journal. Journaling is really good. You can exercise. You can engage in yoga, any form of physical activity. So, really, I would say getting to know yourself on a personal level and just really silencing out any distractions that are distracting you from getting to know yourself, essentially. There are many different activities, there's apps as well. Shine app is a good app for self care for the Black and Asian community. And mindfulness is a good app for meditation and meditating. Dailyo is another good. I sound like an advertisement, but these are apps that I've actually tried, so that's why I'm sharing. Dailyo is another good app, and that's a journal app, so you can kind of track your mood and track what you're doing. That's making your mood dip and making your mood elevate. So get creative with things, and there are many things out there, especially now as well with COVID.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good app because sometimes I was saying this to my sister the other day. It's weird that we could just go through a day and then have a mood dip or a heightened thing, and we just don't know what
Yeah.
caused it. And she was saying she has eczema. She said she felt a dip in her mood, and she said her skin was flaring. And I was like, "What caused it?" She was like, "I don't know." And I said, "How can you not know? You need to know these things
Mm.
about yourself." And we just kind of go through life, and we never really know what our triggers are, and it's weird to me now that I've started to become more aware of it. But it's important to just
Yeah,
know.
definitely, definitely.
Um,
100%.
well, I want to thank you for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. If people want to keep up to date with you and they want to follow your journey, where are you on social media?
So all of my platforms are Therapy with Shah. Therapy with Shah. So you can follow me on there. I'm not as active on Instagram as I should be, but slowly but surely I'll be a bit more active. And you can watch my interviews. I have new interviews coming, I think, ending of February. So that's something to look out for. And my magazine articles, I'll also be doing those. So yeah, a few things coming up. But yeah, that's where you can follow me.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
So much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Premier Gospel.